How could a single night of harmless comfort with my ex destroy everything I built? When the process server handed me a thick envelope in front of the entire PTA during intermission, I finally understood that my husband had been 3 steps ahead all along. What did those papers say that made my mother-in-law smile for the first time in months? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I woke up that Thursday morning feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The sun was streaming through the living room windows, and for a moment, I forgot why I felt so peaceful. Then I heard the soft snoring from the couch and remembered. Miles had stayed over. It was innocent, completely innocent. He had called me the night before, voice broken, telling me his girlfriend had left him. He needed a friend. What was I supposed to do, turn him away? We had history, sure, but that was years ago. We were adults now, mature. Owen was away on a business trip anyway, so what was the harm? I padded into the kitchen to make coffee, still in my pajamas. The house was quiet. Jasper and Nora were still asleep upstairs. I could hear Miles shifting on the couch, probably waking up. His jacket was draped over one of the kitchen chairs. I smiled, remembering how we had stayed up until 2 a.m, talking about everything. His failed relationship, my frustrations with Owen's constant work travel, how life had turned out so differently than we had imagined. That was when I heard the front door open. My heart jumped. Owen was not supposed to be back until Friday. I turned, coffee pot in hand, and there he was, standing in the doorway with his rolling suitcase, still in his business casual clothes from the flight. His eyes moved from me to Miles's jacket on the chair, then toward the living room where Miles was sitting up on the couch, rubbing his eyes. Owen did not say anything at first. He just walked past me to the coffee maker, poured himself a cup and took a slow sip. The silence was suffocating. I tried to laugh it off. I told him Miles had been going through a breakup and needed a place to crash. I said it was no big deal, just a friend helping a friend. I even added that I thought Owen would understand, that he had always said I should maintain my friendships. Owen set down his mug carefully. He looked at me with an expression I could not quite read, not anger, not hurt, just something distant and cold. He asked what time Miles had arrived. I said around 9. He asked if I had texted to let him know. I said I had not thought it was necessary since he was out of town anyway. Owen nodded slowly. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked upstairs without another word. I felt irritation rising in my chest. This was exactly the problem with our marriage. Owen never communicated. He just shut down, retreated into himself, made me feel like the bad guy for having friends and a life outside of our relationship. I followed him upstairs, ready to have it out, to make him see how controlling and jealous he was being. But when I reached the bedroom, he was already moving his pillow and alarm clock to the guest room down the hall. I demanded to know what he was doing. He said he needed space to think. I told him he was being ridiculous, that he was overreacting, that nothing had happened. He said he never accused me of anything. He just needed space. The way he said it, so calm, so measured, made me angrier than if he had yelled. I told him we needed to talk about this like adults. He replied that he had nothing to say right now. Then he closed the guest room door quietly, leaving me standing alone in the hallway. By the time I went back downstairs, Miles was already gone. He had texted me an apology for causing trouble and said he would talk to me later. I felt a flash of resentment toward Owen for making my friend feel unwelcome in my own home. The rest of the morning was tense. Owen made breakfast for Jasper and Nora without speaking to me. The kids sensed something was wrong. Jasper kept looking between us with worried eyes, and Nora clung to my leg more than usual. I tried to act normal, chatting brightly about their plans for the day, but even I could hear the forced cheer in my voice. When Owen left for work, he kissed the kids goodbye but barely looked at me. I told myself he would get over it. He was just being dramatic. By tonight, maybe tomorrow, he would realize how silly he was being, and we would move past this. But as I cleaned up the breakfast dishes, I noticed something odd. Owen had left his phone on the kitchen counter for just a moment while he grabbed his keys. The screen lit up with a calendar notification. Appointment, Civic Plaza, 9:30 a.m. I stared at it, confused. Owen had never mentioned any appointment at the Civic Plaza. We did not have friends who lived near there, and it was not close to his office. Why would he schedule something there without telling me? I reached for the phone to check, but he came back and picked it up before I could unlock it. He gave me a brief, unreadable look, then left. The unease that had been flickering at the edge of my mind suddenly flared brighter. What appointment was he going to? And why had he not told me about it? By Monday, I needed someone to talk to. Owen had spent the entire weekend in the guest room, speaking to me only when necessary, and only about the kids. It was like living with a polite stranger. Every time I tried to bring up the Miles situation, he would say he was not ready to discuss it yet. Not ready? It had been 4 days. How much time did he need? At work, I pulled Dev Chaudhry aside during our morning coffee break. Dev and I had been hired around the same time and had always been friendly. He was easy to talk to, non-judgmental. Or so I thought. I explained the situation carefully, framing it the way I had come to understand it myself. Owen had been emotionally distant for months, always working, always traveling. I had felt neglected. Miles had reached out during a vulnerable moment, and I had simply been there for an old friend. Owen had come home early, jumped to conclusions, and now he was punishing me with silence. Dev listened, nodding, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. He asked if Owen had known Miles was coming over. I hesitated. Then I said Owen had been out of town and would not have cared anyway. He barely paid attention to what I did anymore. Dev's expression shifted slightly. He asked if I had considered how it might look from Owen's perspective. I felt my defenses rise. I told Dev he did not understand my marriage, that Owen and I had problems that went deeper than one night. I said I had done nothing wrong, and that Owen was being controlling and irrational. Dev backed off after that, but I could tell he was not convinced. The day got worse from there. During our team meeting, my manager, a sharp woman named Patricia, noticed I was distracted. She asked if everything was all right at home. I forced a smile and said I was handling some personal matters, but everything was fine. Patricia gave me a long look, then moved on. At lunch, I sat in the break room scrolling through my phone. Miles had texted me that morning, suggesting we meet for coffee later in the week. I felt a flutter of excitement mixed with guilt. I knew I should probably put some distance between us while Owen and I worked things out, but the idea of cutting Miles off felt unfair. He was my friend. I was not going to let Owen dictate who I could and could not see. I replied to Miles saying coffee sounded great. That was when I noticed Jenna from accounting standing near the coffee machine, staring at her phone. She glanced up at me, then quickly looked away. Something about her expression made my stomach twist. After work, I headed to the parking garage and found Dev waiting by my car. He looked uncomfortable. He said people in the office were starting to talk. Someone had seen me texting with Miles during work hours, laughing and making plans. Jenna had overheard part of my phone conversation that afternoon. Word was spreading. I felt my face flush with anger and humiliation. I told Dev that my personal life was none of anyone's business and that people should stop gossiping. Dev said he was just trying to give me a heads up. He added that maybe I should think about how I was presenting things, because from the outside, it did not look great. I snapped at him. I said he was supposed to be my friend, not join the judgment brigade. He did not understand what I was going through at home, how lonely I had been, how much I needed support. Dev held up his hands and said he was sorry. Then he walked away. I sat in my car for a long time, hands shaking on the steering wheel. How had this happened? How had I become the villain in this story? My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Simone. "Mum called. She's worried. Owen's parents came by the house today. What's going on?" My blood ran cold. Why were Owen's parents visiting my mother? What had they told her? I called Simone immediately, but she did not pick up. I tried my mother next. Same result. I sent a flurry of texts asking what was happening, insisting that whatever Owen's parents had said was exaggerated, that there was a misunderstanding. No one responded. I drove home in a fog of panic and anger. This was spiraling out of control. Owen was clearly poisoning people against me, turning my own family into his allies. It was not fair. I was the one who had been neglected, who had needed comfort. Why was I being punished for having emotional needs? When I got home, Owen was already there, making dinner with the kids. They were laughing about something Nora had said at preschool. It was a scene of perfect domestic harmony, except I was not part of it. I stood in the doorway, watching them, and felt a surge of resentment. Owen glanced at me briefly, then returned his attention to Jasper, who was telling a long, rambling story about his day. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went upstairs to the bedroom, my bedroom now, since Owen had claimed the guest room, and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. A new text came through from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's about the kids." Oh. I stared at the message. Why was Owen texting me from a different number? And what did he mean about the kids? A cold, creeping dread began to settle in my chest. Saturday afternoon, I met Miles at the riverside promenade. It was one of those perfect spring days. Warm sun, light breeze, couples and families strolling along the water. I had told Owen I was going to run errands. He had not asked for details. Miles was waiting for me on a bench near the dock, wearing sunglasses and a casual button-down. He smiled when he saw me, and I felt some of the tension in my shoulders ease. This was what I needed, someone who actually seemed happy to see me. We walked along the promenade, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his ex-girlfriend, how she had accused him of being emotionally unavailable. I told him about Owen, how the silence between us had become unbearable. Miles listened in a way Owen never did, leaning in, asking questions, making me feel seen. At some point, he reached for my hand. I let him take it. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should pull away. But it felt so good to be wanted, to be paid attention to, that I let it happen. We stopped near a quieter section of the walkway, away from the crowds. Miles turned to me and said he had missed me. Not just as a friend, missed me. My heart pounded. I told him I was still married, that things with Owen were complicated. He said he understood. Then he leaned in and kissed me. I did not stop him. When we finally pulled apart, I felt a dizzying mix of guilt and exhilaration. Miles asked if I was serious about leaving Owen. The question caught me off guard. I had not really thought that far ahead. I said I did not know, that I needed time to figure things out. Miles's expression flickered. Disappointment, maybe. He said he was not looking for anything serious right now either, that we should just see where things went. Something about the way he said it stung, but I pushed the feeling down. Owen was the problem, not Miles. Owen had driven me to this with his coldness and neglect. That evening, I had to attend Owen's father's birthday dinner at a family restaurant. It was the last thing I wanted to do, but skipping would have raised too many questions. The restaurant had a long table set up for the extended family. Owen sat at the far end with Jasper and Nora. His parents, Margaret and Richard, sat near the middle. My mother and sister were also there, along with Owen's brother and sister-in-law. I took a seat near Simone, hoping for some sisterly support, but she barely looked at me. The dinner was excruciating. Margaret kept asking me pointed questions about how things were at home, her tone polite, but her eyes hard. I gave vague, pleasant answers, trying to deflect. Then, halfway through the meal, Jasper asked loudly why Daddy was sleeping in the other room. The entire table went silent. I felt every eye on me. I stammered that Daddy had been working late, and did not want to wake anyone up with his alarm in the mornings. Jasper frowned, clearly not satisfied with the answer, but he did not push further. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. Richard excused himself to use the restroom and did not come back for a long time. When he returned, he and Margaret left shortly after, citing an early morning. They said goodbye to everyone except me. Simone avoided eye contact the entire evening. My mother looked tired and sad. When dessert was served, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down at the screen. Another text from the unknown number. "We need to talk. It's about the kids. Oh." Why was Owen still texting me from a different number? What was he planning? I looked up and caught Owen watching me from the other end of the table. His expression was unreadable. The following Tuesday, I ran into Bryn Alcott at the supermarket. Bryn and I had been friendly for years. Our kids were in the same grade, and we often chatted at school events and neighborhood gatherings. When I saw her in the checkout lane, I smiled and waved. She did not smile back. I walked over, trying to act casual. I asked how she had been. She said she was fine, then added that she had heard some things and wanted to hear my side of the story. My stomach dropped. I asked what she had heard. Bryn said that Owen had shown her screenshots of text messages between Miles and me. Messages that made it very clear this was not just a friend crashing on the couch for one innocent night. I felt the blood drain from my face. I tried to explain, to tell her that Owen was taking things out of context, that those messages did not mean what they looked like. Bryn cut me off. She asked if I had any shame at all, considering I had 2 young children. Her words hit me like a slap. I told her she did not understand, that my marriage had been broken for a long time, that Owen had neglected me. Bryn said that did not give me the right to betray him and humiliate him in front of everyone. Then she walked away, leaving her cart in the aisle. I stood there, frozen, as other shoppers glanced at me. I abandoned my own cart and fled the store, tears stinging my eyes. How dare Owen share our private business with people? How dare he turn my friends against me? But worse was yet to come. That Saturday, there was a community fundraiser at the local hall. It was an annual event, and I had helped plan it the previous year. I almost did not go, but I convinced myself that hiding would make me look guilty. I needed to show my face, act normal, prove that I had nothing to be ashamed of. The moment I walked into the hall, I felt the shift in energy. Women I had known for years looked away. Conversation stopped when I approached. A group of mothers I usually sat with at school, functions moved to the other side of the room when they saw me coming. I tried to mingle, to smile and chat, but every interaction felt strained and cold. Then one of the bolder mothers, a woman named Gina, approached me. She asked point blank if it was true that I had let my ex-boyfriend stay over while my husband was away on business. I stammered, trying to explain, but my voice came out shaky and defensive. Gina said she had heard I was still seeing the ex, that there were pictures. Pictures? Before I could respond, Bryn Alcott appeared. She told Gina and the others that Owen had been nothing but respectful through all of this, that I was the one who had lied to everyone, who had played the victim while sneaking around behind my husband's back. The room went quiet. I felt dozens of eyes on me. Someone in the back started a slow clap, mocking, derisive. A few others joined in, and then there was laughter. I could not breathe. I turned and ran out of the hall, my face burning with humiliation. Outside, I leaned against my car, gasping for air. That was when I saw it, a parking ticket under the windshield wiper, and beneath the ticket a single printed photo. It was me and Miles on the riverside promenade. Mid-kiss, no note, no signature, just the photo. My hands trembled as I tore the image in half, but the damage was already done. Someone had been following me. Someone had taken this picture and now they were distributing it. How many people had seen it? How far had it spread? I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. This could not be happening. This was not my fault. I was not the villain here. Owen had neglected me for years. I had just needed comfort, connection. Why was I being punished for being human? But deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, I had gone too far. I silenced it quickly. The drive home blurred past in streaks of suburban sameness, neat lawns, identical mailboxes, the kind of neighborhood where everyone pretended their lives were perfect until the cracks showed. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The torn photo lay on the passenger seat like evidence in a trial I hadn't known I was part of. I kept glancing at it, half expecting it to reassemble itself to mock me further. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows that felt like fingers pointing accusingly at our front door. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. The kids were at Owen's for the weekend, part of our temporary arrangement while we figured things out. I kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto the couch, the same couch where Miles had slept that one night, the night that started this avalanche. My phone buzzed incessantly in my purse. Notifications from the neighborhood Facebook group, texts from numbers I recognized but didn't want to. I ignored them all at first, pouring myself a glass of wine with shaking hands. The first sip burned, but it steadied me enough to finally check. The group chat was exploding. Someone had posted the photo, blurred faces, but everyone knew. "Thought you all should see what kind of role model is in our midst," the caption read. Likes and angry emojis poured in. Comments like, "disgusting," and "poor Owen," and "what about the children?" I scrolled until I couldn't anymore, then hurled the phone across the room. It clattered against the wall, screen cracking like my resolve. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps outside, like someone lurking with another camera. I replayed the fundraiser in my head. The laughter, the clap, Bryn's smug face. She'd always been the perfect one. PTA president, bake sale queen, husband who doted on her. Easy for her to judge from her pedestal. Owen had weaponized our pain, turning it into a public spectacle. But was I really innocent? The texts he'd shown Bryn, flirty, suggestive, timestamps from nights when Owen was away. "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again," I'd written to Miles. In the moment, it felt like harmless escapism. Now it was ammunition. Sunday morning brought no relief. I woke to the doorbell ringing insistently. Peeking through the curtains, I saw a delivery van. A package? I hadn't ordered anything. Heart pounding, I opened the door just enough to grab it. No sender name, just my address scrawled in block letters. Inside, a stack of printed photos, the same riverside kiss from different angles. Dozens of them, and a note this time. "Everyone deserves to know the truth. Stop lying." I slammed the door, leaning against it as tears finally came. Who was doing this? Owen. He was angry, but this felt calculated, vicious. One of his friends. Or worse, someone from the community feeding off the drama. I called Miles, my voice breaking as I told him everything. He listened quietly, then said, "We need to meet. This is getting out of hand." We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over, far from prying eyes. Miles looked as wrecked as I felt, dark circles under his eyes, hair unkempt. He'd been my high school sweetheart, the one who got away when I chose stability with Owen. Rekindling had felt like fate. Like reclaiming a piece of myself Owen had eroded over years of late nights at the office. Forgotten anniversaries, sex that felt like obligation. But now, seeing Miles, doubt crept in. "This is my fault," he said, stirring his coffee endlessly. "I never should have come back into your life like this." "No," I insisted, reaching for his hand. Owen pushed me away. You are what I needed." But even as I said it, the words rang hollow. Miles pulled back gently. "Needed, or wanted. There's a difference, Sarah. And now your kids are caught in it. The whole town." He was right, and it stung. My daughter, Emma, was 8. My son, Liam, 6. They'd started asking why Daddy didn't live here anymore, why Mommy cried at night. I pictured their faces at school, whispers following them in the hallways. Your mum's a cheater. The thought made me nauseous. That afternoon, I drove to Owen's apartment. Our old family friend had lent it to him temporarily. I hadn't planned to confront him, but rage propelled me. He opened the door, looking surprised, then wary. "What do you want?" he asked, blocking the doorway. "The photos, the screenshots. Stop it, Owen. This isn't about us anymore. It's hurting the kids." He laughed bitterly. "You think I'm behind the photos?" "Sarah, I showed a couple people the text because I was devastated. Needed someone to talk to. But stalking you, printing pictures, that's not me." "Then who?" "I don't know, but maybe if you hadn't paraded him around town." "Paraded? We went for a walk. One walk." His eyes hardened. "After he spent the night, after you lied to my face." We argued in circles, voices rising until a neighbor peeked out. I left defeated, no closer to answers. But as I walked to my car, I noticed something. A familiar sedan parked across the street. Bryn's car. Was she watching? Or was paranoia taking over? Monday brought school drop-off hell. I usually carpooled with Gina and another mom, but my phone was silent. No invites. At the curb, Emma clung to my leg. "Mummy, why is everyone staring?" "They're not, sweetie. Go on, have a good day." But they were. Mothers huddled, whispering. One waved awkwardly, then thought better of it. I sped away, calling my boss to say I was sick. Work felt impossible. Concentration shattered. By evening, the harassment escalated. An anonymous email. A video attachment. I hesitated, then clicked. Grainy footage from a dashboard cam, me and Miles entering my house that night. He stayed over. The door closing behind us. Timestamp clear. Subject line, proof for the doubters. I forwarded it to Owen with a single text. "If this is you, we're done playing nice, lawyers." His reply, "Not me, but maybe check your boyfriend. He's the one with the motive to make me look bad." Miles? No way. He was as victimized as I was. Or was he? We'd broken up years ago because he was impulsive, jealous. Had he snapped photos himself for some twisted reason? I confronted him over the phone. He denied it vehemently. "Sarah, I'd never hurt you like that. But Owen's not wrong about one thing. This is spiraling. Maybe we pause us until it's sorted." Pause, after everything. I hung up feeling more alone than ever. The week dragged on in a fog of isolation. No playdates, no coffee invites. The kids came home with drawings from school. Emma's was a family stick figure. Mommy, Daddy, brother, sister. But Daddy was crossed out in red crayon. "Teacher said to draw what makes me sad," she explained. That broke me. I tucked them in early, then sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine and my laptop. Time to fight back. I created an anonymous account on the neighborhood forum and posted my side. "You've heard one version. Here's the truth. A marriage neglected for years. Emotional abandonment. One mistake in a moment of weakness. No excuse, but context matters. Stop the witch hunt." Responses were brutal. "Liar." "Homewrecker." "Delete this." But a few private messages trickled in, women confessing similar struggles, thanking me for speaking up. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then, the breakthrough. Late Friday, a knock at the door. A young woman, early 20s, looking nervous. "Hi, I'm Kayla, from the coffee shop near the river. I think I know who's doing this," she explained. She'd been dating Owen's co-worker, Mark, a tech guy with a grudge against Miles from some old business deal. Mark had bragged about exposing cheaters after overhearing Owen vent at a bar. He'd hacked traffic cams for the video, used a drone for photos, wanted to ruin us both. "Proof?" She showed texts from Mark, screenshots of his anonymous posts. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because it's wrong. And My mom's in a similar spot, divorcing. I don't want this for anyone. I hugged her, tears flowing. Finally, a path forward. I took everything to the police. Harassment, stalking. They raided Mark's place, found the prints, the drone. Charges filed. Owen was cleared, but our bridge was burned. The community backlash softened slowly. Some apologized. Others never would. Bryn sent a curt email. I was harsh. Sorry. Gina invited me to coffee, awkwardly. Miles and I? We tried again, slower this time. Therapy for me, for the kids. Owen and I co-parented civilly, focusing on Emma and Liam. Months later, at the next fundraiser, I walked in head high. No claps, no photos. Just nods, some smiles. I'd owned my part, the affair was wrong, no justification erases that. But the punishment, way overkill. I wasn't the villain, nor the hero. Just human, flawed, learning. And in the quiet moments, that small voice returned, not whispering doubt, but growth. You went too far, but you came back stronger. Thursday, 11:47 p.m. I sat in the dark kitchen, phone glowing like a coal in my palm. The calendar invite still stared back. Document review, Central Library, 2:45 p.m. Attendees, O'Brennan, Balls, 1. I opened the shared calendar settings. Owen had granted me view-only access to his work calendar 3 years ago when we were planning the Hawaii trip. He'd never revoked it. I scrolled backward. Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Call W. Caldwell, RE, Asset Split. Monday, 9 a.m. Storage Unit 412, Inventory. Last Friday, 3:15 p.m. PI Briefing, Riverside Lot. My breath fogged the screen. Friday, 6:12 a.m. Owen left before the kids woke. No goodbye, no lunch packed for Jasper. Just the soft click of the front door. I drove the kids to school in silence. Lila asked why Daddy's car was gone so early. I said work. At 8:03 a.m., I was at the Central Library. The third-floor conference room was booked under O'Brennan. I flashed my old faculty ID, still worked, and took the stairs 2 at a time. Room 312, door ajar. Owen sat at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, legal pad open. Across from him, a woman in a charcoal suit, early 40s, hair in a low knot. A manila folder between them labeled B1. I pushed the door open. Isolde. Owen didn't sound surprised. The woman stood. Mrs. Brennan, I'm Evan Caldwell. We represent your husband. Owen's eyes flicked to the folder, then to me. You shouldn't be here. I was invited. I held up my phone. Caldwell's smile was thin. A clerical error. We'll revoke access. Owen closed the folder. Let's reschedule. No. I stepped inside. Show me. He hesitated, then slid B1 across the table. Inside, bank statements, joint account, red circles around transfers to my personal savings, $2,400 on 9/14, $1,800 on 9/28, $3,100 on 10/5. Screenshots of my text to Miles. Need to see you. Kids at Mum's. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., the night he stayed over. A printed email from Miles to me. Same hotel as last time, room 412. Photos, Miles leaving our house at 6:12 a.m., hoodie up, me kissing his cheek on the porch. I looked up. You hacked my phone. Subpoenaed records, Caldwell said smoothly. All legal. Owen wouldn't meet my eyes. Friday, 10:30 a.m., I called Ms. Rao from the library parking garage. She answered on the first ring. They've got texts, photos, transfers. They're alleging financial infidelity and moral turpitude. Send me everything, she said. We'll file for emergency mediation. And Isolde, stop contacting Miles. Now. Friday, 12:15 p.m. I drove to Miles's office. He was leaving for lunch, tie loosened. We need to talk. He glanced around the lobby. Not here. We walked to the park across the street. Owen has everything, I said, texts, photos, the hotel. Miles went pale. I deleted. You didn't delete the hotel registry or the keycard logs. He rubbed his face. I'm married, Iz. My wife. Your wife knows? She will if this goes to court. I laughed, bitter. So you're bailing. I have kids too. I walked away. Friday, 2:45 p.m. I picked the kids up early. Lila had a fever. Jasper was quiet. At home, I found a courier envelope on the porch. Urgent. Respond by 5 p.m. Inside, proposed settlement. Owen keeps house. $401K. Primary custody. I get the car. $50K buyout. Weekends with kids. Clause 9. I agree to supervised visitation until completion of parenting classes. Attached, affidavit from Margaret Brennan detailing late-night male visitor and concern for grandchildren's welfare. I called Ms. Rao. They're bluffing, she said. Margaret's affidavit is hearsay. We counter with 50-50 joint assets and mutual restraining orders on extracurricular relationships. Friday, 4:58 p.m. I signed nothing. Saturday, 8:01 a.m. Owen came for the kids. He hadn't slept. His eyes were bruised. I don't want this, he said quietly. Then stop it. I can't. Caldwell says if I back down now, I look weak. You look like a father weaponizing his kids. He flinched. Lila ran out, backpack dragging. Daddy, are we going to your new house? Owen knelt. Just for the weekend, Peanut? Jasper hung back. Mommy, are you coming? I crouched. Next weekend, bud. Promise. Owen loaded them into the car. He paused at the driver's door. I'll have Caldwell send revised terms. Saturday, 3 p.m. I broke into the guest room. The filing cabinet was locked, but the key was still on the hook behind the router, Owen's old hiding spot. Inside, Archive M, Miles's full name, address, work history. Archive I, my deleted texts, recovered. A new folder, counter-strategy, I opened it. My mother's phone records, calls to Owen lasting 45+ minutes. Photos of me at the metro station yesterday, alone, looking frantic. A draft affidavit from Lila's preschool teacher. Mrs. Brennan appeared distraught during drop-off. Child asked if Mommy was sad. I took photos of everything. Sunday, 9 a.m. Ms. Rao met me at a diner. She spread the photos across the table. He's building a narrative of instability. We hit back with his. She slid over a thumb drive. Owen's PI is sloppy. He photographed Owen meeting Caldwell at the Riverside Cafe. Same day he claimed to be working late. Also, Owen's been transferring money to his sister's account. $15K last month. We'll call it dissipation of marital assets. Sunday, 6 p.m. Owen returned the kids. They ran inside, exhausted. He lingered on the porch. I got your counter. Good. I don't want to drag the kids through this. Then don't. He looked at the ground. Mediation, Wednesday, neutral site. That Wednesday, 10 a.m. The mediator's office smelled of lavender and panic. Dr. Patel had kind eyes and a steel spine. Owen spoke first. I was hurt. I overreacted. I don't want primary custody. I want the kids to have both parents. I went second. I was reckless. I should have ended things with Miles cleanly. I'm done. We signed 50-50 custody, 2-2-3 schedule, house sold in 5 years, proceeds split, mutual non-disparagement, counselling, 6 sessions, then reassess, PA fired, all surveillance destroyed. 3 months later, the house sold faster than expected. We split the equity. Owen bought a townhouse 2 miles away. I took an apartment with a balcony big enough for Jasper's telescope. The kids adapted. Lila started calling both places home. Jasper drew a map connecting them with a red crayon line labeled Love Highway. Owen and I met for coffee every other Sunday to sync calendars. The first time was awkward. The third, we laughed about the PI's terrible photos. Miles moved to Denver. I unfollowed him everywhere. One night, Owen texted, "Kids want pancakes at the old diner." "Join?" I replied, "Be there at 9. We sat in the same booth where we'd planned our wedding. Jasper spilled syrup on Owen's sleeve. Lila stole my hash browns. Owen wiped his arm, looked at me across the table. "We're okay." I nodded. "We're okay." It wasn't the ending we'd scripted, but it was ours. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Owen continued his quiet, methodical routine. I tried to corner him, to demand answers, but he remained maddeningly calm and distant. On Thursday morning, I stood on the balcony at dawn, staring at my phone. Miles had not replied to any of my messages in 2 days. Owen had not spoken to me beyond logistics about the kids. I convinced myself that tonight would be different. Tonight was Jasper's school play. Afterward, once the kids were in bed, I would sit Owen down and make him understand. I had made a mistake, yes, but we could rebuild. We could fix this. I had to believe that. Mid-morning, I went to the gym, hoping to clear my head. In the locker room, I overheard 2 women talking. One of them said something about that marketing woman whose husband is filing. My blood turned to ice. I froze behind a row of lockers, listening. The other woman asked if it was true about the affair. The first woman said she had heard it from someone in the husband's office. Apparently, he had been gathering evidence for weeks. I felt like I might be sick. They did not notice me as they left the locker room, still talking. I texted Owen immediately. "What are they talking about? What are you filing?" He did not respond. That evening, I arrived at the school auditorium early. I needed to appear normal, supportive. I needed people to see me as a good mother, not the villain everyone seemed to think I was. Jasper was backstage in his costume, excited and nervous. I hugged him tightly, whispering that I loved him and that I was so proud of him. He hugged me back, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The auditorium filled quickly. I found a seat near the middle, trying to avoid eye contact with the other parents. I saw Bryn Alcott across the aisle. She looked away when our eyes met. The lights dimmed. The play began. Jasper was perfect. He remembered all his lines and did not look nervous at all. I felt tears prick my eyes, a confusing mix of pride and grief. At intermission, the lobby filled with parents, teachers, and PTA members. I lingered near the refreshment table, trying to blend in. A group of mothers I vaguely knew were chatting nearby. I forced a smile and joined the edge of their circle. That was when I saw the man in the dark suit walking toward me. He moved through the crowd with purpose. My stomach twisted. He stopped in front of me and asked if I was Callista Brennan. I nodded, confused. He handed me a thick manila envelope and said clearly, loudly, "You've been served." The lobby went silent. Everyone turned to stare. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document. The words blurred, but certain phrases jumped out. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Temporary orders. Temporary primary physical custody granted to petitioner. Respondent allowed supervised visitation on a set schedule. Family home to be maintained as the children's primary residence. Financial accounts frozen pending division. I could not breathe. Owen had filed for divorce. He had secured temporary custody. He had frozen our accounts. He had planned this for weeks. The folders, the phone calls, the calendar entries, the locked filing cabinet. All of it. I looked up, and there he was, standing near the auditorium doors, calm and composed, holding Nora's hand. His mother, Margaret, stood beside him. Her expression was neutral, but there was a gleam of quiet vindication in her eyes. My own mother was there too, seated near the back. When our eyes met, she looked away, her face pale and tight with shame. Bryn Alcott stood with a cluster of other mothers, arms crossed. One of them whispered something, and several heads nodded in agreement. The PTA president, a woman I had once considered a friend, stepped forward and asked if I needed a moment. The pity in her voice was unbearable. I stammered that this was a misunderstanding, that Owen was doing this to hurt me, that I could explain, but the crowd had already turned. I could feel their judgment pressing down on me from all sides. Owen did not gloat. He did not say a word. He simply ushered Nora toward the auditorium, where the second act was about to begin, and told one of the teachers he would take Jasper home afterward, as outlined in the temporary order. I tried to follow, but the process server stepped into my path. He reminded me, politely but firmly, that I needed to comply with the terms now in effect. Any violation could result in contempt proceedings. I stood there, papers crumpled in my fists, as the lobby emptied and the lights dimmed inside the auditorium. Through the doors, I could hear the opening notes of the second act. Jasper's scene was coming up. I would not be there to watch him. Margaret Brennan paused on her way back inside. She met my eyes for one cold, unflinching second. Then she disappeared into the darkened theatre. The lobby was silent. I looked down at the petition, at Owen's signature, at the court date circled in red, and understood that everything I had built, my marriage, my reputation, my family, was gone. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Miles. Heard what happened. Think it's best we don't talk for a while. Take care. I stood alone in the empty school lobby, the sound of applause muffled behind the auditorium doors. I held the divorce papers in one hand and my silent phone in the other. I had no one left to call. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the world went dark. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.